You're not tired because you've done too much, you're tired because your mind hasn't known peace in a long time. You fight battles no one sees every day, but what if I told you the greatest strength you'll ever unlock is the ability to stay calm in chaos? That peace isn't something you find, it's something you create, and today you're going to remember how powerful you really are. You know, most people think the real battles are happening outside, in the workplace, in relationships, in finances, but the truth is, the hardest war you'll ever fight is the one inside your own mind. That's where it all begins. Every decision, every fear, every breakthrough, it all starts with the story you tell yourself. And sometimes that story is filled with doubt, fear, comparison, and judgment. You wake up in the morning already in survival mode, already replaying yesterday's mistakes or worrying about tomorrow's outcomes. And we call it being productive, but really, it's just mental exhaustion, that inner dialogue, the one you think no one hears, that's the loudest voice shaping your life. When it says you're not good enough, you shrink. When it whispers you're falling behind, you start chasing things that don't even align with who you are. And when it says you always mess things up, you begin to self-sabotage, not because you want to, but because you believe that's your truth. But here's the thing, that voice can be retrained. You're not stuck with it. You're not doomed to live with chaos in your head. You can interrupt the cycle, pause the noise, and start speaking to yourself differently. It begins with awareness. When that negative voice shows up, don't judge it, don't fight it, just recognize it, catch it mid-sentence and ask yourself, is this even true? Is this voice trying to protect me, or is it keeping me small? Because the difference between fear and truth is usually just clarity. Most people live their entire lives trying to conquer the world, all while being defeated in their own thoughts. They build resumes, achievements, followers, but they still feel empty, because the war inside was never won. And I get it. It's easier to chase things outside of us than to sit in silence and confront what's happening within. But real peace, real strength, it starts when you master that inner space, not perfectly, not all at once, but intentionally. You have to become your own advocate. Speak life over yourself even when it feels unnatural. When that inner voice says, you'll never make it, answer back with, watch me. When it tells you, you're too broken, respond with, I'm healing. When it says, you're not enough, whisper back, I am, exactly as I am. Because every time you counter the lie with truth, you're building resilience, you're rewriting the script, and maybe no one taught you how to do that growing up. Maybe you were raised around criticism, perfectionism, or silence, but this isn't about blame, this is about ownership. You get to be the one who breaks that cycle. You get to be the one who says, it stops with me, because your peace is your responsibility. And no one is coming to fix it for you, you have to choose to protect it, even from yourself. And let's be real, it's not easy, it takes practice. There will be days when your thoughts get loud again, when anxiety creeps back in, when doubt knocks at the door. That's okay, it doesn't mean you've failed, it means you're human. The goal is not to never struggle, the goal is to not stay stuck. The goal is to come back to center quicker each time, to have a toolkit, a mindset, a system that pulls you back into alignment when life tries to knock you off course. You don't need a perfect life to feel peace, you just need a consistent inner environment that refuses to let temporary chaos rewrite your permanent identity. Peace isn't found in the absence of problems, it's built in the presence of self-awareness and discipline. The voice in your head may always be there, but how you respond to it. That's where the power lies, and once you win that battle inside, everything outside starts to shift. You ever notice how the more you try to control everything, the more life seems to push back? Like you're holding onto things so tightly, people, outcomes, expectations, that your hands are always clenched, your shoulders always tense, your mind always racing. It's exhausting, and we do it because we think that if we just manage it all perfectly, we won't get hurt. If we predict every outcome, we'll stay safe. If we stay on top of everything, we won't fall behind. But the truth is, control is an illusion. It's a story we tell ourselves to feel less afraid. And here's the problem with that story. It keeps us stuck in cycles of stress, in relationships we've outgrown, in expectations that don't even belong to us. We carry so much disappointments from the past, fear about the future, guilt over things we can't change, and it weighs us down, day after day, like walking around with a backpack full of bricks. We don't even realize how heavy it's gotten until life forces us to drop it, until something breaks, or someone leaves, or a plan falls apart, and suddenly we're left standing there with empty hands and a shaken heart. But that moment where everything feels out of your control, that's not the end, that's the beginning, that's the invitation to let go. Not to give up, not to stop caring, but to release the grip you've had on things that were never meant to be controlled in the first place. And that's hard. Letting go feels like weakness at first, it feels like you're surrendering, but it's actually strength. Because it takes courage to stop holding on to things that no longer serve you. You have to be brave enough to let go of the apology you never got. The closure you thought you needed, the version of life that didn't turn out the way you planned. You have to let go of trying to fix people who don't want to change, of proving yourself to people who have already made up their mind, of waiting for permission to live freely. Peace doesn't come from micromanaging your life, it comes from trusting that even if it doesn't all go according to plan, you'll still be okay. And listen, I know that's easier said than done. Sometimes letting go feels like losing, but it's actually winning in disguise. Because you stop wasting energy on what you can't change, and you start investing it in what you can. You start responding instead of reacting. You start showing up differently, not because everything's perfect, but because you're no longer being ruled by fear. You're not controlled by the chaos anymore, and the people around you might not understand it at first. They're used to the old version of you, the one who tried to hold everything together, who bent over backwards, who carried burdens that didn't belong to them. But this version of you, the one who sets things down and walks lighter, that version is powerful. That version makes room for peace, for clarity, for real healing. You'll notice something shifts when you let go. Conversations get easier, sleep gets deeper, breathing feels more natural, not because your circumstances changed overnight, but because you changed. You stopped gripping life with fear, and you started flowing with it in faith. You stopped resisting reality and started accepting what is, without settling, without giving up, just choosing peace over pressure. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care, it means you care enough about yourself to stop carrying what's not yours. And once you do that, once you create that space, you begin to see what's truly meant for you, not forced. Not begged for, but aligned, and that kind of life, that kind of peace, you don't chase it. You attract it, and when that shift happens, you stop asking, how do I control this, and start asking, how do I grow through this? Because that's where the real power lies, in surrender, not struggle. Life has this way of throwing things at us when we least expect it. You think you're finally getting ahead, and then, bam, something knocks the wind out of you. Maybe it's a job loss, a betrayal, a health scare, or a dream that just won't seem to come to life no matter how hard you push. And in those moments, it's so easy to ask, why me? It's easy to feel like the world is working against you, like the weight just keeps piling up while everyone else seems to glide through life untouched. But here's something I've learned, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, and sometimes, the very thing you think is breaking you is actually building you. I know it doesn't feel like that when you're in the middle of it, when you're knee-deep in stress, pain, or confusion, all you want is for it to stop. You want peace, you want clarity, you want things to make sense, but clarity rarely comes in the chaos, it comes after. Growth isn't something that just shows up wrapped in comfort. It's forged in the fire, it's born out of discomfort, out of disruption. The chaos is the training ground, the pressure is where your potential starts to take shape, but we resist it. We spend so much energy trying to avoid pain, trying to shortcut the struggle, trying to pretend like we're fine when we're falling apart inside. And in doing that, we miss the lesson, we miss the transformation. Every challenge carries a mirror. It shows you where you still doubt yourself, where you need to grow, what you're still holding on to. It strips away the noise and reveals what you're really made of. That doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. You don't have to pretend to love the hard parts, but you do have to honor them, because whether you realize it or not, every storm you faced has shaped you. Every setback taught you something your success never could. Pain taught you how to be patient. Loss taught you how to appreciate. Failure taught you how to persevere, and when you start looking at your challenges not as punishments but as preparation, everything shifts. You stop running from discomfort, and you start leaning into it. You ask better questions instead of, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, what is this trying to show me? That shift in perspective doesn't erase the difficulty, but it gives it meaning. It gives you direction, and that meaning is what keeps you grounded when the winds pick up again. We live in a world that celebrates comfort and ease, but comfort never made anyone unbreakable. Struggle is where resilience is born. Struggle is where your character is tested and revealed, and sometimes the chaos you're trying to escape is actually your invitation to rise, to become someone you didn't even know you were capable of being. So stop seeing your challenges as curses. They are callings, callings to rise higher, to think deeper, to become more rooted, more aware, more powerful. Don't just go through them, grow through them. Let the hard moments shape you, not define you. Let them build your emotional muscles. Let them teach you how to stand firm in peace, even when the world around you is shaking. It doesn't mean you won't feel fear or stress or frustration. You're human. You're supposed to feel all of that. But the key is not letting those feelings run the show. The key is learning to pause, breathe, and say, this isn't the end. This is the lesson, this is the growth, and when you get that, when you embrace that, there's no challenge you can't face. Because now, you're not just surviving the storm, you're learning how to dance in the rain. There comes a point in life where you realize not everyone should have access to you. Not because you're better than them, not because you're cold or distant, but because your peace is sacred. And protecting it is not selfish, it's necessary. We're taught to be kind, to be giving, to show up for everyone. But no one really teaches us how to draw the line between kindness and self-neglect. We stretch ourselves thin trying to be everything for everyone, and in the process, we leave no space for ourselves. We build walls thinking they'll keep us safe, but what we really need are boundaries, clear, healthy ones that let love in but keep chaos out. There's a big difference between building boundaries and building walls. Walls shut everything out. They're built from fear, from pain, from past wounds. They keep people at a distance, even the ones who care, but boundaries are built from clarity and self-respect. They say, this is where I end and you begin, this is what I will allow, and this is what I won't. And when you have boundaries, you stop over-explaining yourself, you stop apologizing for your needs, you stop carrying guilt for choosing yourself. I know it's hard, especially if you're used to being the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who keeps the room together. But there's a difference between bringing peace and abandoning yourself for it. Peacekeeping isn't peacebuilding. Sometimes, keeping the peace on the outside means creating a war inside. You smile when you're hurt. You say yes when you want to say no. You agree to things that drain you just to avoid disappointing someone. But every time you do that, you chip away at your own well-being, and it doesn't have to be loud. Boundaries don't need to come with anger or resentment. They don't require long explanations. Sometimes, the strongest boundary is a soft but firm no. A no to energy that depletes you, no to conversations that go nowhere, no to relationships that keep you small. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. The people who love you won't be offended by your boundaries, they'll be grateful for your honesty. And the ones who get upset, that's just proof that the boundary was necessary. But here's what happens when you start protecting your peace. Your energy shifts, you stop running on fumes, you stop living reactively, you start choosing where your time goes, who gets your attention, what kind of energy you allow into your space. You feel more grounded, more present, more alive. You stop showing up as a version of yourself built on burnout and resentment. You show up as your true self, clear, confident, and calm, and yes, people might question the new version of you at first. They might call you distant or selfish or changed, but that's okay. Growth confuses people who are comfortable with your limits. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your alignment. You're responsible for your peace. You're responsible for teaching people how to treat you, not with your words alone, but with your actions, your energy, your presence. So ask yourself, what have you been tolerating just to keep things peaceful on the surface? Where have you been silent when your soul was screaming? Who have you been letting too close to your spirit, even when their presence drains you, because you don't need to prove your worth by staying accessible to everyone. You don't need to earn love by overextending yourself. You are allowed to exist in spaces that feel safe. You are allowed to say, "I love you, but I need space." You are allowed to choose peace over pleasing. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away, they're about bringing yourself back. And when you finally draw that line, not out of anger, but out of love, you start to feel it. The freedom, the clarity, the strength, and that's when you realize peace isn't found, it's protected. We live in a world that never stops moving. Constant notifications, endless opinions, pressure to keep up, to be seen, to be heard, to be on, all the time, and somewhere in the middle of all that noise, we lose something important. Ourselves, our peace, our clarity. It's like we wake up already behind, already caught in the rush, reacting instead of living. And the louder life gets on the outside, the more we forget what stillness even feels like on the inside. But here's the truth, stillness isn't weakness, it's power. In fact, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. That doesn't mean being lazy or passive, it means knowing when to stop forcing, stop fixing, stop overthinking, and just be. We've been conditioned to believe that if we're not grinding, not pushing, not achieving, then we're falling behind. But not everything that looks like progress is peace, and not everything that looks like rest is laziness. Sometimes you've got to sit still long enough to hear yourself again, to hear what you actually think, what you actually need, what's really going on beneath the surface. And that kind of stillness, it takes discipline. It takes maturity. Anyone can react, anyone can stay busy, but it takes real strength to pause, to say, "Let me breathe before I respond. Let me check in with myself before I commit. Let me sit with this feeling before I bury it." Because if you never sit in silence, how will you ever know what's guiding your decisions, your intuition, or your anxiety? Stillness is where you reconnect with your center. It's where clarity lives. It's where peace can finally reach you. But most people are afraid of it. They avoid it. They fill every moment with distraction, with noise, with busyness. Because when things go quiet, the truth gets loud. The pain you've been avoiding, the decisions you've been postponing, the parts of you that still need healing, they all rise to the surface. And that can feel uncomfortable, but it's also where the real work begins. Healing doesn't happen in the chaos. Growth doesn't happen when you're rushing, it happens in the pause. And this isn't about meditating for an hour a day or going off the grid. It's about finding stillness in the middle of your life, in small moments, in deep breaths between meetings, in the 5 minutes you sit in your car before walking into the house. In choosing not to respond right away, in learning to observe instead of react. That's where you begin to take your power back. That's where you become intentional instead of impulsive. When you practice stillness, you start to notice things, you start to feel when something is off, before it becomes a problem. You learn to trust your inner signals. You begin making decisions that align with who you really are, not who the world expects you to be. Stillness helps you stop absorbing everyone else's energy so you can protect your own. It creates space, space to think, space to feel, space to choose wisely. And when life gets heavy, when it feels like the pressure's too much, the noise too loud, the chaos too constant, those are the moments where stillness matters most. Not to escape, but to anchor yourself, so you're not swayed by every storm, so you don't lose yourself trying to keep up with a world that never stops moving. Because at the end of the day, peace isn't something you find out there, it's something you create in here. In the quiet, in the calm, in the space between reacting and responding. So don't underestimate the power of your pause. Don't rush past your moment of clarity just to meet someone else's timeline. Stillness isn't wasting time. It's saving you from wasting your life on things that don't matter. And when you learn how to be still in a loud world, that's when you realize your calm is your superpower. Somewhere along the way, we got tricked into thinking that life is this giant scoreboard, that everything we do has to lead to a result, that every moment has to be productive, that our worth is tied to how fast we move or how much we accomplish. We start measuring our value by titles, by timelines, by how far ahead we appear compared to someone else. And with that pressure peace slips right through our fingers because we're so focused on chasing perfection that we forget to live with purpose. But there's a huge difference between moving with pressure and moving with purpose. Pressure says you're behind, a purpose says you're right where you need to be. A pressure screams, do more, be more, prove yourself. A purpose whispers, be you, fully, honestly, consistently. And the more we operate from pressure, the more we disconnect from ourselves. We start doing things just to be seen, just to stay relevant, just to check boxes we didn't even create. That's not living, that's surviving, that's performing. And I get it, sometimes the noise around you gets so loud that you start believing it. You start thinking you're not enough because you don't have what someone else has. You see people highlight their wins and wonder why yours aren't coming as quickly. But what you don't see is the full story. You don't see their struggles, their doubts, their behind-the-scenes breakdowns. And more importantly, you forget your own journey. You forget what you've already overcome, what you've learned, how far you've already come, just trying to survive the storms that no one clapped for. That's why walking in purpose matters, because purpose isn't loud. It's not about appearances, it's about alignment. It's about waking up in the morning and asking, what matters to me today? And letting that guide your steps, not someone else's expectations, not society's timelines, not the version of success you've been pressured to chase. When you move with purpose, everything starts to feel lighter, not easier, but lighter, because now you're not carrying the weight of trying to be everything to everyone. You begin to realize that your life doesn't need to look like anyone else's. You stop rushing your process. You stop forcing what isn't meant for you. You let go of the idea that success means being constantly busy. And instead, you create space for meaning, for connection, for direction that actually feels right in your gut. You learn to honor your pace, even if it's slower than you expected, because slow progress in the right direction is still progress. Purpose doesn't require speed, it requires intention, and when you lead with intention, peace follows. You begin to feel more grounded, even in uncertainty. You're not easily shaken by other people's opinions, because your identity isn't tied to their approval. You stop proving, and you start being. You begin to trust your inner compass more than the world's map. That's when things shift. That's when life stops feeling like a constant fight, and starts feeling like a journey you're actually present for. And yes, people may question it. They might not understand why you're not doing what they think you should be doing. They might say you've changed, and they'd be right, you have. You've stopped living for pressure, and you've started living with peace. You've stopped chasing things that don't align, and you've started moving with intention. And that's the kind of change that doesn't just transform your schedule, it transforms your soul. So give yourself permission to slow down, to breathe, to move with clarity, not just urgency, because life isn't a race to the finish. It's a journey of becoming, and when you choose to walk with purpose instead of pressure, that's when you finally realize peace was never a destination. It was how you chose to take the steps all along.